afternoon, and welcome to United Soccer FC. My name is Harry. Joining me tonight is Colin, a.k.a. Soccer Chef on Twitter, who is an awesome follow, especially when it comes to the energy and all things food-related for that here. And Will, who's also on Twitter at WNBRHS here. How are you both doing this evening?
Very good.
Doing well, Harry. How you doing?
Doing well here. So, when I did tease the show here, Boston Mario 9118, Tulsa fan, wanted to ask the first question to Soccer Chef. He's going to be wearing a certain kit at Taft here. Do you want to kind of explain what that kit will be and how that came about?
It's just a friendly bet. They, I think I first tried to get it to be money, but then there were no. So, and since COVID happened, I couldn't actually get up there to do it. But there was never a rule of wearing it all game long or anything like that. So that's not going to happen. He can come over to the tailgate and I'll put it on. He can take a photo, but that's all it's going to stay on. I will be over an open flame. I'll put that out there. So be a damn shame
if the flame gets too close.
Yeah, I mean, Will knows for a fact that I'm pretty good at burning myself.
There's quite a few campfires back on the line at work.
So the air system is cleaned daily, I would assume then.
Yeah.
For that here. So we're here to talk about Oklahoma City Energy FC, one of the semi-rivals with San Antonio. Although this year we only get one day, and I think it's in Oklahoma City on a Sunday because it's later in the year. Where I think at that point, due to high school, I think in previous discussions with fans from Oklahoma City is when you guys are able to get the field because Saturdays for high school. So just taking a quick look last year, we don't want to delve in too far. But for me, especially, I won't lie, I had OKC is a contender for the playoff spot with Tulsa and the groups when they came out, and unfortunately it did not work out. Win-win, 7 draws, 8 losses, points per game at 0.663. And I think the amazing thing to me was no wins at home at Taft Stadium here, which historically has been a pretty tough place to play as an away fan, being an away fan, from there here. So we'll start with you, Will, here. Thoughts on last year and kind of what happened, what went wrong, and just, it's a season to forget, but unfortunately we can't go forward without looking at the past.
Right. Yeah. So not a whole lot to really talk about. I mean, nothing really went our way. I know early on in the season, we had quite a few defensive problems. Quite a few guys went out on injury. We had several guys drop off the roster, and it just didn't work out defensively. And so because of that, I know we had to drop several of our midfielders and some of our forwards down, Tucker Stevenson, namely, to spend time on the back line and, just playing guys out of position, playing with no squad depth. We really got put in a hole early and a hole too deep to climb out of. And I think towards the end of the season, it started to come together a little bit, but too little, too late, unfortunately.
Your thoughts there, Colin?
Yeah, basically the same stuff. Just we had to play players out of position way too much.
And looking at the schedule here, it was very home loaded at the beginning. Was it 1, 2, 6? 6 of your first 7 were at home, which meant that the second half of the season you were mainly on the road, which is never an easy place here. And that was Coach's first year, if memory serves me correct, right? So he came in. Was it Pasquarella? John Pasquarella, Coach Pasquarella came in. COVID hit, which obviously I know we dealt with it here in San Antonio with Coach Marcina, but he was on staff. So, with Coach Pasquarella dealing with a brand new team for that here. Do you think and we always say with the transition, and I think, I don't know whether it was you guys or, a couple other Oklahoma City supporters that I talked with, they thought last year was kind of a little bit unfair, just, with the COVID, being able to build the roster. He may not have had all the people that he wanted to bring in. Is that kind of a fair assessment? Maybe last year's kind of, just wasn't a fair view of what his coaching abilities or what the roster makeup will be compared from last year to this year?
I think it's fair. I think it's easy to make excuses at the same time, but I think that's a fair assessment. Coach Pasquarella and our assistant coach, Lee Vidman, I think I'm saying that right, Lee Vidman, have a lot of relationships from the old Fresno organization. And I think that last year they really tried to build Fresno FC 2.0. It's something we joke about a lot. But, they brought even more players in this offseason coming in from Fresno from 2019. And I think that was something that JP and Lee really wanted out of last year. So I don't think that they got all the guys, all the moving parts that they wanted. And then obviously with COVID, it didn't really help. Our schedule was being bounced around a lot. Like you said, the first half of the season was all at home, and the second half of the season was on the road. Well, we had a lot of games rescheduled toward the back half of the season. We got kind of overloaded, but again, easy to make excuses, especially after last year. But I don't think we were given a fair chance at seeing what JP and Lee are really capable of doing with this team and this organization. So I think this year things will be better. Things will be, fixed for the most part. I don't think we will see a very drastic improvement. I'm not going to go out and say that we're going to be the best team in our conference by any means, but I think that we're going to be able to see this year more of what JP and Lee wanted to do last year, but we're limited on.
So, go ahead, Colin.
Something JP had said in this offseason, he was asked like what type of players he was looking for. And I think one of his first statements was he wants players that want to be in Oklahoma City, that want to play on this, not just coming here for money or, just a one season. Badge. Yeah. So I think that's also part of some of the players that he's got this year and that we kept.
So the stadium, and this will be kind of two-prong here for it here. Current stadium is Taft Field, high school stadium. For me as a Wave fan, I've been there 2 or 3 times. It's a good place to play. However, it is a high school stadium, for that here. But game day, like I said here, we'll start with you here, Colin. Pre-game, post-game, kind of what's it like as far as, if you were to come to Taft Field and attend a Energy game against your whoever the opponent is?
Well, for me personally, it begins the night before, packing up all the tailgating stuff and whatnot. I've slowly realized if I do that on a Friday night, it makes Saturday a lot easier. But yeah, we usually start at around 3:30. Unfortunately, we've had to change tailgate locations due to the school and all different types of other things. But, our first tailgate last year was right before COVID hit. So that was probably one of the biggest ones we've had in quite a while. Went off without a bang. It was, fortunately, I still have the bottle of Jägermeister in the garage. I don't know if it's good anymore. But,
Jaeger never dies, man.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Maybe Mario wants some. But no, and, usually to keep the costs down, we just do like hot dogs and burgers and chips. And it's all just tip money. We don't ask for anything. We used to be able to get local breweries to donate like a little pony keg. Mm-hmm. I think we were going to try to get that done last year, but once again, COVID. So I think this year we'll try to do that as well, but we're trying to see how Will and I work together at our place of business. It's run like a tight ship when it comes to safety. So we're just going to integrate basically how we get to serve food at our place of business, mm-hmm. at the tailgate. So it's like only people that touch the food is Will and I, or will be Will and I. Masks,
Normal gloves, that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Try to make it as fun as it could possibly be without, somebody flipping out and you're breaking protocol.
Food safety is important, but we all know that sometimes the rules don't necessarily fit with real life. We'll just leave it at that.
Right.
Having spent a few years in the kitchen, and especially back in my military days, for that here. The supporter groups, I believe I saw that there's several of them. I think 5, at least that's being recognized by the Energy. But the Grid and North End United are the 2 big ones that I'm aware of. I'm not sure if either one of you are part of them, but what do they bring to the community and also to game day, at Taft Stadium? I know you guys are down, obviously on the north end, through there here, but what does the supporters group bring pre-post game? And like I said, do they do any community events that we want to try to highlight?
So I'll go ahead and start on this one.
Oh.
So we have I'll go ahead and start by shouting out all of our supporters groups. We've got the Grid, which is the main one. That's the one that's been there since day one. They're kind of like our umbrella over all of the others. And then we got North End United, which is me and Colin and, our inner circles. And then we've got Main Street Greens, which is another supporters group that we have, which is very community driven, very politically actively involved. And then we've got another supporters group, so I'm not sure is very active at all. I'm not personally good friends with them. That's Furia Verde. If you ever see anything from them, that's mainly our Hispanic culture.
They're the ones in the stands.
Yeah, they were
on the east side, right?
Yeah, they've been all over, and so we've got those 4 or 5, however many I just named, supporters groups. Personally, Main Street Greens, they do a great job in the community. They're always looking out, not just for soccer supporters, but for the community specifically. They've always done a great job with that. North End United is really looking at evolving into doing more things like that. We started out pretty small. Last year was a pretty good boom for us. Despite the bad season on the field, off the field, it was pretty great for us. And so this year we'll be looking at expanding, having more projects that are more community driven rather than just team driven. The Grid, I can't speak personally for the Grid, but I think that they do a good job. I think that they'll have some projects coming up as well this year. I don't think there was too much going on last year.
I don't think anybody was here.
Yeah,
at least here in San Antonio as well.
Right. So we're excited to see North End United has some projects in the works. I'm excited to see what the other groups can come up with.
And then, I know if you follow Colin, you know that he cooks for the club. He'll cook meals for the club for that here. There'll be like random drawings for, player X for that here. To me, it's an awesome idea, that you've done and a good way to give back to your local club here. Just how did you come up with that idea? And is there any stories that you can that you can share, or, if you can't, you can't. Obviously that's develop personal relationships, but if you have any cool stories that you can share.
Well, so how it came about, myself and Patty, I think, Will, you were there?
I don't know. Tell your story.
Anyway, Patty is our player manager now, I guess.
Liaison, director of football, whatever his official title is these days.
He's the dapper dressed one on the sidelines now. But he and I have developed a good friendship. Just basically, it all evolved from just going on the road and running into him on the road and supporting on the road. But he had brought up that he thought it would be great to somehow create a community, not just, we're fans, but make it more family, community oriented. So I was like, well, what if we just cook one meal for each one of the players each week or every 2 weeks and whatnot, and just see how that goes. And I think I can speak for Will. the players loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking for myself, I get all goofy and, I don't know, nervous because I'm like, oh my God, it's
Cooking for Cody.
yeah, cooking for Cody. He just called me the salt of the earth. What? I'm like, and Will's over here freaking out because he's cooking for Rafa Garcia, a 2-time MLS champion. I'm like, it brings it down to more of a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
As Patty would always tell me, he's like, they're just people. That's all they are. I'm like, yeah, kind of.
It's different though.
Yeah. But yeah, so this year I'm taking more of a kind of a quarterback role, and we had about 4 to 5 people last year kind of reach out and be like, hey, I'd like to cook for, a player or whatnot. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. It's not just an inclusive group. As I said, we want this to be a community. So I'm just going to kind of quarterback this year. We'll pull a name and attach it to some, when one of the supporters or one of the fans, and be like, okay, this is what they like. We set up a preference book for each player, what they like, don't like, vegan, vegetarian, whatever. And then, we'll just work with the player and the fan to get the food over to them. I think Will and I are the only ones that know where they're all staying. So there's kind of that privacy line where,
right. To me, like I said here, the unique thing is, obviously I'm a heavy set guy. I'm not, you can just tell by that I eat anything. Obviously players, they have a certain diet. They have a certain things that they look for along those lines. So, but that to me, it's awesome. It's one of the unique things, in USL, I believe. So, hats off to you guys. And like I said, I always enjoy, not only, hey, the drawing is person X, but especially last year, you could just tell by the replies from the players on social media. It's very much appreciative, and it's an awesome touch. And for me personally, I would, if other teams would love to adopt it, like I said here, that'd be kind of awesome as a way to give back to them. And as you mentioned, it personalizes, and number one, you're able to kind of meet childhood, heroes along those lines, develop a little bit more one-on-one relationships, which, carry on, hopefully past, playing careers, but for that here. So to me, that's awesome. And I was always interested in how that came about here. So,
yeah, it was, for me personally, I think the greatest thing hearing about it from last year was how many of the players, they would say, as soon as practice wrapped up on Friday, they'd all race to their phone to see who got drawn. I'm just like, you guys, it's not that big of a deal. But
no, it is a big deal. It's, to me, it's on par with the Luligans and the bucket that they had. It's a great tradition.
That was cool.
Now theirs was post game, with adult beverages that they may or may not have been able to drink depending on the age, and they would substitute for that here. But to me, it's along that same kind of tradition that the Energy have started and developed through you, Colin. So, and obviously with Will being helping out, and then it sounds like it's even expanding beyond that, which is awesome to see for that here. So let's talk about the rivalry with Tulsa, the Black and Gold Derby, and what it means for Oklahoma. Like here in Texas, there's 4 teams, so it's the Copa Tejas is still kind of developing. And last year we didn't have it, but you guys are able to have it. There's only 2 teams in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City historically has been the better, winning 4 out of 6 years on the wrenches. However, last year, not so much, going back to the earlier conversation here. So what does that rivalry mean in Oklahoma there, Will?
So I think to us as supporters, it means more than we can cover in the hours so chock that we're about to have. I think that
I got all the time you need.
I think the Black Gold Derby is especially interesting because, at least to my knowledge, it's one of the few rivalries in, I'll say the USL, not just US Soccer, but the USL that goes beyond just the teams on the field and is actually a rivalry between residents of 2 cities. And I think that's what makes it a derby, and that's what makes it great, is that, not to talk bad about your San Antonio RGV rivalry, but do you ever have beef with people just because they're from South Texas, from way down?
No, and I think that could change though. Now, San Antonio and Austin on the Bold. The problem with that relationship is because Austin FC, the MLS, came in.
Right.
I think it was Austin FC in San Antonio.
Right.
You would have that personal touch.
Right.
With RGV, this is their first year as an independent team. So, and I hate to say it, and I'm assuming probably the same way, with Tulsa and Oklahoma City. There's a lot of intermixed family, that come up from the Valley up to San Antonio and vice versa. So it hasn't gotten personal yet, I guess you could kind of say, because they were two teams. So it was, hey, Daddy Dynamo for that here. This year they lose that. So I'm wondering how that will kind of change the rivalry. But they've got to develop more of a fan base first,
right.
To be able to do that. But it's not on par with Tulsa and Oklahoma City by no means. And
my point just being that, the rivalry between Oklahoma City and Tulsa goes way beyond sports. It goes down to the very first days of the statehood that, which city was going to be the biggest city, after the land run and after settlement of Indian territory, which city was going to take over the state. And it's something that we've been going back and forth on for decades, coming up on centuries now. And I think that's carrying over into soccer, and the residents of Oklahoma City and Tulsa are using that as sort of the outlet, because we've never had anything to compare the two cities before. Obviously, there's college football. Oklahoma City fans really tend to lean towards University of Oklahoma. Tulsa fans sort of lean towards Stillwater and Oklahoma State. But then that's never really been representative of the two cities themselves. It's just kind of been each city grabs a hold of something and uses that to compete. So I think the derby is especially great because it's personal. It goes beyond soccer. It's the two cities competing, not just the two teams. And it's something that, while I respect the other rivalries in the league, I don't see much of. I don't see much of that personal level. That I don't hate Tulsa fans because they're Tulsa fans. I hate them because they're from Tulsa. that type of rivalry, And it's just it's great. It's awesome to be a part of. Last year was one to forget, but it's one that it's that level of intensity that we live for on both sides. So I think that this year there's something to prove. There's something to the guys have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. That's not how they wanted to end the season last year, and I think it's going to be even more intense coming out and trying to put Tulsa back in their place a little bit.
Your thoughts, Colin, on it?
Well, I go all the way back to CHL hockey. You'd never miss an Oklahoma City Tulsa hockey match because, of course, it was just nonstop fights. It didn't really matter who won, but we beat the hell out of Tulsa.
Literally,
yeah. But yeah, like as Willis said, so I've known there's kind of not a big rivalry, but like when we both started our AO chapters, everybody was racing to get more and more numbers. And of course, Oklahoma City came out on top on that. Yeah. But, it's just knowing Tulsa for so long and knowing, there's something to be said. Yeah. Majority of the friends I have up there are Chelsea fans. So there's a little bit of that. Oh, hey, we can't be too mean to each other, but yeah, I know we hosted a party for the players after the season was over, and I didn't get to hear it all, but Will, I guess, did get to hear it and how just down and out the players were that they couldn't win the wrench for the supporters. So as Will's saying, I think there's going to be a chip on the shoulder. I personally know that most of the things that Tulsa's already said are being put up on blackboards in the locker rooms. So, I think it's going to be a lot different this year.
So if and I've been to Oklahoma City, but this is a question that I always ask. So if you're coming to Oklahoma City, and especially with you guys being in the East this year, hopefully you're going to have new away teams, away supporters coming too. So if you're coming for the weekend or for the day here, we'll start with you here, Colin. What's one of the what's some of the things that that they should look to do while they visit Oklahoma City, whether it's for the day or if you only got one day coming in,
Right.
during that, what's one of the things that they should stop and do in Oklahoma City?
Well, I mean, I guess the one thing you always say is, oh, go see the Riverwalk. It doesn't compare it to San Antonio's Riverwalk, and it's more of a creek. But anyway,
it's not a bad place, though. I won't lie. I don't go to ours, but I did go to yours. So
yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but I guess it's
downtown.
Yeah, you saw it being built, and you've been around it your almost entire life. So I would almost say, like, get into some of the neighborhoods that are just kind of north of downtown. I'd also direct supporters to our local soccer pub. It is about a 50-person capacity, stinky, smells like dog's piss. It smells like it should if you're going to go watch an EPL game at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, but yeah, like the Plaza District or Midtown. There's great shopping if the lady wants to go shopping. Incredible food. I love the Mule. Let's see, what else?
I know for me, the Kid Science Museum.
Yeah.
If you're bringing kids, it's probably for me is probably the best science museum in the United States that I visited. And like I said here, I went to one in St. Louis, and it just like I said here, I enjoyed the one in Oklahoma City so much better. So
could hop onto one of our amazing streetcars. That's pretty exciting.
And a little known fact, the Kids Science Museum is in kind of the same area as where the Energy practice. So you can go stop by the practice facility, take some pictures. And, one of the cool things that I like that the Energy do that San Antonio doesn't do, and I wish they would do more, is the community fields. Like, outside of their practice, they got a basketball arena, with the nets, but they got their logos there. And I think there's a few others that scattered around the city as well. Where they do that. So, Will, any thoughts on, if you're visiting Oklahoma City for the day or weekend, spots that for you is must to do?
I think one of the best things that you can do in Oklahoma City to really capture the culture of the people is check out the Oklahoma City Memorial, where the bombing happened in '95. Full disclosure, if you're taking kids, I don't recommend going inside to the museum. It gets pretty graphic, but I think that if you're an adult and you're mature enough, it's a great place to go and kind of understand the event, the atrocities that happen. And I think it's a good place to see kind of where the recent explosion of culture came from in Oklahoma City. And then agreeing everything Colin said, checking out some of the neighborhoods. One he left off was the Paseo up on 23rd Street. Definitely go check that out. So many good bars and restaurants up there. That's pretty much it. I mean, if you're making your way over to the Science Museum, definitely check out the zoo that's next door.
Mm-hmm.
If you're over on that side of town at all and you're near the Energy FC training grounds, you can hit up the American Pigeon Racing Museum, the Pigeon Racing Museum that's tucked way back there that I bet nobody probably goes to. But
it's spectacular. It's a must-see.
For some reason, Pigeon Racing Museum, check it out. So
I think didn't we rename the training ground the racing
the pigeon racing fields or whatever it was. Yes.
So the other topic and part of the reasons why I wanted to have you guys on is the new stadium. So from an outsider's view, and I was talking to Colin, before the show started, that the big issue is, hey, let's get it passed. Well, it got passed. And I thought kind of like what Colorado Springs was, hey, it got passed. They're going to start building on it. And I know Taft Stadium, I think, is the only USL that's played, that's not in an approved, that doesn't have an approved soccer field by its size, if memory serves me correct. because it's too narrow from that here. But in speaking, I want to say it was Will that mentioned that, the stadium isn't happening as quick as most people say. And like, so if you go onto USL, it was like, hey, it has to pass and then a new stadium's going to come. But I think what the perception is that, hey, Oklahoma City's got a stadium being built, but Will, you made it seem like that, hey, not so quick here. So you want to kind of go in on kind of the status of the stadium from a local's view compared to an outsider's view?
Yeah, so from a local's view, I'll go ahead and put this out there that I'm not involved in the project. I don't know anything. I've not talked to anybody who's officially on the project. This is just from projections of what we've seen and kind of what we've seen in the past. So the stadium was a part of something called the MAPS project, which was a
MAPS 4, I think is what it
MAPS
was.
4 is the fourth edition. It's a penny sales tax in Oklahoma City that would fund all sorts of these public projects. And it, the first one happened in like the 80s. I think it was the revival of Bricktown. So MAPS 4, I think, was the largest project. They quoted it at like $950 million, just shy of $1 billion. And there were 16 total projects. It's been the biggest one. So the MAPS 4, the multi-purpose stadium where the Energy would play, was advertised as a very low priority project.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like, hey, we're going to have all these great things. We're going to get, all these things that we really should need, issues like homelessness and mental health, all these other more important issues. But while we're at it, let's go ahead and fund the stadium. So it's been advertised as a low priority project. Now, keeping that in mind, the recent MAPS projects have all had a timeline of 10 to 15 years. The last MAPS 3 was passed in 2009. Last year, they just finally finished up some of those last projects. So keeping those two things in mind, I really think that because of how big this project is and because of how low priority the stadium was whenever the project was passed, I think it could be 10 years before we see the stadium, built and ready to play. So, but that's just me. That's just projections. That's based on what we've seen in the past with these public projects and kind of what we've seen around the city.
Yeah, that's not how USL sells it.
Nope, not at all.
to be honest with you, USL's, to do it. And if you've been a fan of lower division soccer long enough, and I'm sure Colin, has been. Do you know if there's any interim plans to get out of Taft? And I've been around the game long enough to remember, the what was it, NASL versus USL soccer wars originally in Oklahoma City with Taft, with Rayo OKC and Energy FC. Do you think Taft is kind of a long-term 4, 5, 10 years, or do you think that there's something that they could see something in the middle? And the reason why I ask is Louisville was paying a fee to USL, fine to USL for the baseball stadium, so that they were in at Slugger Field. I'm assuming the Energy are paying probably some sort of fine for not being at an approved field. Now I don't know if that's official, but just being able to put the pieces together and knowing the longevity of soccer teams in the United States, 10 years is a long time to go at Taft.
Yeah, for sure.
For that here, Colin, do you think that there's some sort of plan B to get, whether it's a pop-up stadium like in Phoenix and along those lines, or do you think it's Taft or bust?
I can't say that I've sat down with anyone. I have heard conversations. I think it happens within the next 5 years. We'll have a stadium. We threw out, 3 locations to the general public, and you could see, each one of them carries its own kind of difficult, plan. Yeah. So, I think they're just waiting on the location. And I think once they get that location, it's going to just full steam ahead. because as far as I heard, we get fined like $500 a game, every home game for playing at Taft. I know we had signed, I think coming into this year or last year, like a 2-year contract with Taft. So, if it was last year, I don't know. Of course, I don't know how the contract was, drawn up. You say, oh, well, COVID hit, you're not really in the full contract. But, I would think after this season, they'd either have to find it, sign another contract with Taft, or, I mean, they could do a pop-up stadium by, one of these sites, especially the co-op, just, throw something up and then build something right next to it. I think that would look really cool. That's just me personally. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little more optimistic than Will.
Fair enough.
Just to me, no, and I hate saying this, and I even say this about San Antonio FC. I have no belief saying San Antonio FC, or I wouldn't guarantee San Antonio FC is going to be here 10 years from now, even with Toyota Field, just because I know just the costs. And right now, San Antonio FC, I think by most indication, makes money off of it, with the attendance. But, with Austin FC coming, along those lines here, I think it's going to be interesting to see how attendance works down here. The good news for Oklahoma City is historically you guys are between 4,000 to 4,500, 4,000 to 4,500, pretty stable when it comes to attendance. For that, even before COVID, for that here. And I know when you guys have, better records, more fans come out, just like here in San Antonio and everywhere. But it seems like the base is about 4,000 to 4,500. So it would be interesting if you guys do get out of Taft to see if that can expand up here for that here. But with it being a new year, new faces, and of course, kind of who is the biggest loss. But to me, your biggest loss is the Western Conference. You guys are moving to the Eastern Conference here. So with Tulsa, and well, I guess you're not going to the Eastern Conference. You're going to the Eastern Conference, but the Central or Heartland Conference, depending on how you want to have it coded here. You guys excited about moving east, or you guys have been in the West since the beginning, unlike St. Louis that used to flip-flop. You guys will be seeing new teams. For the most part, you still keep, I think, all 3 Texas teams, or probably all 4 Texas teams here as far as the out of conference. But Colin, you excited about going to the Central Conference here, which is part of the East now?
I think it's going to be a little tougher than the West.
Really?
Maybe it's because I didn't really watch much of the Eastern Conference, so I don't know. All I know is Louisville and Indy. I know we've got a stretch of like 20 days where I think that'll make or break our season if we can get into the playoffs. Because it's like Louisville twice in 7 days with another game somewhere in the middle. But I mean, yeah. From just a supporter standpoint, I'm excited to go to a different city and, go see what Louisville's stadium's like.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Maybe meet a Twitter person and ask him some questions. But yeah, I mean, it would have been really nice if we could have got in with Miami. I would have loved to have gone to the beach before a game.
Miami away would have been fun. I'll tell you that.
405, 305.
Shouldn't have scheduled all the Texas teams.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Will, on going to the East?
I'm excited. Yeah, just basically for the same reasons Colin said: new faces, new teams, new stadiums, new fans. The argument, at least among USL fans, has always been which conference is actually better. Are the teams in the East better, but they have a weaker schedule? Is the Western Conference evenly matched, so it makes it tougher? And I think it'll be interesting to see, is the East actually tougher? Is it a little bit easier compared to the West? Is it, is it just going to be the same thing? And I think we're just kind of just excited to get the ball moving again and just see some soccer against some new teams. So
I think part of the reason why I wouldn't mind going to the East would be no 9 o'clock, no 10:30, 10 o'clock games. They're all going to be maybe an hour early, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock kickoffs for the most part. So to me, that's especially as a supporter group watch party, that would be probably one of the big bonuses where, if you're not going to be able to travel, the watch parties will all be at a kind of a reasonable time as opposed to late night on there here. So who's out? We can't talk. You guys had 3 big retirements. For me, Cody being number one, Mr. Bam Bun, for me, and I know it goes back to his early playing careers, and he's had a couple of hair changes since then. But Atiba Harris and Rafael Garcia, 3 names that to me are synonymous with at least for the last few years with the Energy. We'll start with you, Colin. Thoughts on the 3 big players retiring, and what that kind of means, as an organization moving forward. With Cody to me was the face of the Energy for the last few years.
And I think he will continue to be. I think he's always going to be around the club. He's bought a house here. He even called it Oklahoma or something. I forget how he said it, but he set up a permanent residence here. So yeah, he's always going to be around the club, always going to be respected. Pretty sure he can just walk in any game. Atiba, so I know he's running for St. Kitts Football Association president.
Oh, nice.
So I got to cook for him, and I'm pretty sure he bought his house too. So I'm not sure how that would work. I'd rather be in St. Kitts doing something, not in Oklahoma.
Not even close.
No, and I know his girls are in academies around here. Rafael, I think his big thing, he went back to college. He was starting to get injuries every season. I know Tulsa fans are probably pretty happy not to see him anymore.
San Antonio fans as well.
But I've been talking with Rafa for like the last 2 weeks about some things. But I think he just thought it was time to hang him up. I don't think it was anything with the coach or GM or anything. Just time. Yeah. But
your thoughts, Will?
I think that each one of those retirements is big for their own specific reasons. I think that on the field, Rafa is going to really there's going to be a hole left there. I think Rafa was our enforcer. He was the guy who wasn't afraid to stand up for the team at all. And not saying any of the other guys here won't, but that's definitely going to be missed. I think in the locker room, Cody for sure is going to be missed. Nicest human being you could ever meet. Atiba, I didn't know Atiba personally too well, but just his attitude and his willingness to put his body on the line every single week is something that we're going to miss. Just that attitude of wanting to be here, wanting to go to war with us it's all they're going to be all 3 of them for sure. That being said, one of the biggest complaints from supporters in the last few years is that we keep recycling the same older generation players.
Right.
All of those players are well into their 30s. I think Atiba's like 36 at this point. Don't put me on that. Rafa's 34. Cody's maybe not that old, but time to move on. And so I think that
Cody's 32. Atiba was 36, and Rafael was 32 as well. So yes, a little bit longer in the tooth for USL.
Yeah, so I think it's refreshing in a sense that now we can kind of work with some younger guys, maybe lower the age of our players a little bit and kind of build for a future rather than, and no disrespect, picking up players who are a little bit past their prime at this point. So we're going to miss them, but, excited to see what the new guys can bring.
So one guy that kind of caught me off guard that was back was Frank Lopez, because he signed from San Antonio. He was signed from Los Dos, who was signed. He was on loan with us. We were hoping that it would keep him, but he went back to LA and then signed with Oklahoma City. But he was loaned out to Sac Republic last year, which was kind of odd to begin with. Mm-hmm. But I saw that he did score in preseason here, so it sounds like he's back with the club. Thoughts on Frank Lopez back? If he is back with the Energy here and what that could mean.
I think he's back. I mean, I think that they're planning on using him. He's in training every day, at least from what we can see. And if what the Energy are posting is current, he's getting involved every day. I think last year's loan move was a bit of a shock. We were lacking on.
You guys were struggling to score, and then you moved.
There's no easy way to say that. And then we take away, in my opinion, the best striker we had on that team, and nobody knows what the move was for. But I think it was shock. It was out of the blue. I really hope that we can keep him this year, because I think even with the new additions, our attack, and our scoring ability specifically is still a little bit lacking. I'd love to see Frank Lopez stay. Now we brought in Viljan Bijev
from Sac Republic,
who played with Sac Republic as an attacking winger, and I think he and Frank should link up nicely if we can hang on to Frank, if we don't send him back out.
Throw in
your
Aiden.
Thoughts, Colin?
Oh, basically the same stuff. I mean, I was really impressed with seeing Aiden play for the Canadian team in the Olympic qualifiers, I guess it was. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch him come fly down the sideline. My biggest thing is it just goes back to TAF and how narrow it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like if we play on a regulation size field, these players are going to be able to, really shine. But it's just so tough to.
So muddled, yeah. And then you guys have some a new back line with Robert Coronado from RGV, Mitchell Osborne, and Connor Donovan, who I think was 1 year at North Carolina, but previously with RGV Houston. And then you guys had a couple of they showed defensive midfielders, Hiroko Kuramoto and Seth Moses, and then of course, as you guys already mentioned, to me the big forward Bijev from Sac Republic. So. Thoughts on year 2 of coach and with the reinforcements that he's brought in?
We don't have Seth Moses anymore.
Oh, you don't? Oh, sorry.
That's right.
He was released from his contract at the beginning of March. It was the Energy put out a statement, but it was very quiet about it. So we don't know what happened. But
sorry about that.
No, I mean, we didn't realize it until 3 weeks later. Just putting that out there. Don't expect to see him in an Energy jersey this year. As far as the back line goes, I'm excited to see what these guys can do. I don't know much about any of them personally. I think it goes back to the conversation about the retirees. We've lowered the age of the back line by, I think, 6 years total, which, not saying age is always great, but it provides room moving forward that hopefully these guys can, find a bit of permanence here and can try and link up. Obviously, defensive issues have been our biggest issues, not just last year, but 3-4 years ago. And then our defensive midfielders, again, I don't know too much about these guys personally, or even statistically. I haven't done a ton of research. I'm just kind of excited to see what that back line can do and what these new faces can do.
Well, I know Coronado was a thorn in San Antonio's side. And I know was speaking with down in the valley with Edson that he was one of the few people that showed great leadership last year with RGV that struggled like Oklahoma City did last year. So I'm kind of excited to see what he's going to be able to do when with an indie team. And I know RGV's indie this year, but last year they weren't. To see kind of that growth, from Coronado. But to me, like I said here, I'm interested to see what year 2 brings, under Coach JP. So expectations, I don't think Energy is championship or bust, but I think it's more playoffs or bust. For that here, you guys are going to be in the Central or Heartland, where top 4 from each conference qualify. I think the early season favorites are Birmingham, the Legion, Lou City, obviously, Indy, and Tulsa. The people that the others in the division with Oklahoma City. Couple of 2 teams and Memphis, which acts like a 2 team, I think, right now. Sporting Kansas City 2, Atlanta 2, and Memphis for that here. So thoughts on your conference this year, and are you guys thinking playoffs or bust, or championships or bust?
First up, I don't disagree with those preseason favorites. I think that all 4 of those teams are going to be very good showings for the playoffs. I don't think we're championship or bust at all. I mean, I don't think we have any real chance at a championship this year. I think we should be. I know I'm positive. I think that playoffs is a good goal for us. I think that if Oklahoma City really puts in the work and really grinds and digs deep and leans into that culture that we don't give up, no matter how down and out we might be, we keep grinding, we keep showing up every single week and playing our hardest, even if that's not our best. You just play your hardest, and I think we might be out to surprise some people, pick up a couple results here and there where it matters. We could do some damage. I don't think that we're the worst team, but I don't think that we're the best team. We'll just see how it plays out towards the end of a long season this year.
Your thoughts, Colin?
I think the 3rd and 4th spot are going to be very tight. I think it will come down to us and Tulsa. Whoever's going to be 3 and 4. Like Will said, if this team can gel, we can stay out of injuries, make a really good run, just get all the pieces working together. We could be a really good team.
I think if you guys can make Taft work for you guys again, like it used to, because it used to be when you went to Oklahoma City, if you got a tie, that was a good result with Taft, because it is narrow, it is a tougher place to play, and I've been in the crowd when it's going, and especially with the Energy and San Antonio. When the crowd gets up, it does affect, just because it is so compact. And I think with having, Memphis, Atlanta 2, Sporting Kansas City, if you guys can handle your own, against those teams, the only thing that, kind of looking at the out of conference schedule, you guys have 4 out of conference. You play RGV, San Antonio, Austin, and El Paso. San Antonio and El Paso, I predict, will be solid teams. We'll have to see how good they are. To me, the question is, how much improvement does RGV make? And to me, the question is, I'm not a fan of the Bold. I think the Bold take a step back. Is how far of a step back? If you're looking at points per game last year, I went through and did it. The Energy have 1, 2, 3, the 7th toughest schedule based on the points per game. If you take a look, with what their group, and then the 4 out of conference. So, but to me, if you can handle, the two MLS 2 teams and Memphis, I think that'll give you kind of a leg up on fighting for that 3rd spot, 3rd or 4th spot for that here. So, the final to kind of wrap up here, if you guys are able to travel for away, what away game are you looking most forward to? I know Colin already mentioned Louisville City, and I think that seems to probably be a favorite here. But taking out Louisville City, is there an away game that you're looking to travel to, whether it's in group or out of group?
I think Austin is going to be a good away day. Maybe not. I might not even go to it, but Austin is always a fun game between the 2 teams. Very much reminds me of the old days, of San Antonio and and Energy, both evenly matched teams that fight very, very hard to the last second of the game. So I think that's going to be a fun one. Memphis will be fun. I might make a trip out there, and then obviously Louisville, can't leave them out, even if we want to. That's going to be a good trip. Might take a group. Don't know yet. Just kind of have to play it by ear.
Depending on what the boss says with the schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Colin, for you, any away games that you're looking to go to?
Oh, Tulsa's just number one up on that list. No, Memphis.
Tulsa's a gimme, though, right?
Yeah,
it's not an away day. It's not an away day. Memphis, Austin would be fun. I think the Indy game's like on a Sunday or during the week, if I remember correctly.
I can tell you. So the first Wednesday is June 2nd, and then Saturday, August 14th.
Oh, okay.
Might do that. Yeah, something like that. Of course, as I said, Louisville. I think the biggest issue now with travel is it was so much easier to go west because you could fly Southwest and get really cheap flights. But now going east, it's all like American Airlines, United, multiple stops. Carriers. Yeah, multiple stops and like $100 more. So you're just like, ugh. Even though I know everybody wants to drive, but
the one that nobody mentioned here, and it's something that I was kind of hoping to, but they're actually coming here, is Birmingham, because they have the Civil Rights Museum there. And speaking with Kaler from Hammering Down podcast, when we talked to him about Birmingham, he made it seem like that especially with the environment that we're in right now, with social injustice and stuff like that, that's a would be a well worthwhile trip to be able to go see, especially if you have to choose between Memphis and Birmingham. Birmingham, I think, is probably the better game per se, although Memphis, you'll probably get the win based on roster. But, like I said here, Memphis and Bill Street's awesome, having spent some time in Memphis, but Birmingham is one that I think is a little bit underrated that here.
I think I looked at the Birmingham, and it was just so difficult to get to. It's just like
so. But any final thoughts, guys? Like I said here, really appreciate you talking about the Energy. I know the start of the conversation wasn't as fun talking about last year for that here, but like I said here, I think coming into the new year, I'm excited to see Oklahoma City return back to normal for it here. If you're a Tulsa fan, you're hoping Oklahoma City remains how they were last year. And I'm excited to see Tulsa. I know I'm being a neutral here. I think the league's better when Tulsa and Oklahoma City are good, and that rivalry is one of the best in the league here for that here. But any thoughts? We'll start with you, Will, here. Any final thoughts that you have?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. I think we're just ready to wipe our hands clean of last season and kind of get back to the form of being one of the bigger clubs in the USL. Maybe not just on form, but we've been here the longest. We have a history. I think it's time we get back to that, and we're excited to do it this year.
Colin, any final thoughts for you?
Basically what Will said, make TAF a place that somebody does not want to come to anymore. Shut up our noisy neighbors. Just get back to demanding respect by our play on the field.
And my final thought is, I want to give a shout out to Billy, the voice guy of the Energy, an awesome follow on Off the Pitch podcast. I think it's Tyler is a sidekick on it and here for that here. But Billy's a great dude, and every time I'm in Oklahoma City, I try to stop by and say hi. And like I said here, so Billy, like I said, hope everything's doing well. Hope your Energy has a better product for you to put out this year, because last year you kind of ran a little bit thin on episodes with the Off Pitch podcast. So hopefully this year you can return. But thank you guys for coming on United Soccer FC. Hope you have a wonderful evening and a good rest of the work week.
Thank you, Harry.
Thanks, Harry.